And we're going to move on now to the other game that was going on in the Rugby Championship last weekend. It was not the curtain raiser, actually it was the prime time show.
Yes, it was.
After that little curtain raiser 100th text between the Springboks and the Wallabies. I must say, by the way, awesome stadium where in Queensland, the stadium they were in, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it was a Queensland Country Bank Stadium.
That's it, yeah. And yeah, it was a great occasion after that classic match between the Boks and the All Blacks. The Wallabies were in for that. The Wallaby fans were in for that. Everybody stayed around for this game.
Yeah, bums on seats. It was good to see.
Yeah, it was a great crowd, great atmosphere, and the Wallabies put on a show. I mean, this was kind of a flex from them. They're like, the Springbok wins were not a fluke.
No.
The Bledisloe defeats were a consequence of playing the best team in the world and a team that you match up against poorly.
That's also true. Yeah.
That was unfortunate, but I think this was the Wallabies very much demonstrating that they are right there among the top sides in the world, and if you're a little off that, like the Pumas, you're not going to have a chance against them. They didn't look brittle in this game. The Pumas are a sticky opponent at the best of times.
Yeah.
They
Even
did
at the
take
worst times. They were very dominant at scrum time. Australia had very little success on their own ball with the scrum, which was unlike them. They've been very dominant in that area. But similarly, mauls, they were good in the tight. They were physical. They defended them gamely. They stymied the Wallabies.
Stole a few lineouts. They were definitely
combative and tricky and
good. Good at the set piece, good defensively, and yet unlike last year in the early days of the Rennie project, when Australia were the only team working on offense against all the defenses, they were not caused that many problems by it. They got up early and stayed up for the rest of the game. Comfortably the better side, moved the ball really well, has some marrying some explosive ball player, game breaking ball carriers with some really creative players. Great balance of distribution and strike running in this team, and they're wetting it really well. I mean, Dave Rennie, how well does he know attacking rugby?
This is it, and also just where are the stocks coming from? I mean, like Banks, who had been brilliant, drops out with a broken arm, unlucky for him, but Reece Hodge took all of 5 minutes to get himself on the score sheet with a lovely executed line. Little soft from Sinti, to be honest, in the tackle from an Argentinian point of view. Lovely young attacking thriving 13 as it was, but
that's
he was
funny one.
It's kind of shades of Campagnaro for Italy, where he's like decent going forward, but the floundering attempted tackle where he just kind of swivels off the hips, but a very strong finish from Hodge. And I actually thought the second of the tries was my favourite of them, just in terms of like all of the unsurety or the uncertainty around what their A team was in terms of their midfield, and you saw the one that they've arrived on by the end of this Rugby Championship, the one that they're going to trust again this week, of Quaid at 10 with Karevi and Ikitau, and they all combined beautifully for that second try where Quaid drops it just after a lovely sequence of attacking rugby, a delicious little grubber through the middle that sits up perfectly for Ikitau to claim just under the sticks, and then Karevi peels blindside and goes over under the sticks. Initially Maloney on comms thinks he's held up, but there's no one holding this Karevi up from this year. Not in 2021 there ain't, because he was always getting that down. And that midfield just absolutely purring and picking apart this oft very stoic midfield defence from the Argentinians. They were pulling them this way and that, certainly at the beginning of the game, and they were also getting on top without the ball as well. That was almost more of a story in this, because like in the week prior, Argentina had kind of stumbled upon this back line with Guerreras at 10 and all this, and a bit more excitement, and they were a little bit better with ball in hand. But this week, with the pressure that the Wallabies brought from very early stages, guys like Boffelli were just frozen out of the game because they couldn't get it, and guys like Carreras were overwhelmed at 10.
What we're seeing now from the Wallabies is the flip side of the negative of having to play the All Blacks all the time. You know, it damages the confidence, it hurts your record, obviously, and your standing, can hurt your the engagement with the game from a grassroots level, because they're just the matchup is so poor, the defeat's so constant that it just gets discouraging.
Dizzying,
But when they come up against any other offense in the world, it is
conditioned for a much higher tempo game than those guys are bringing.
Exactly, and a little bit better from the Pumas was not enough. They have game breaking players all over the field on both sides of the ball, but they also just have a lot of speed and a lot of energy. Valentini and Hooper, awesome in those loose forwards, they bring so much on both sides of the ball. They never stop running. Karevi now coming out of the line, like they have so much explosion and real engine and a bit of depth now as well. But their energy on defense is great, just as it is on offense. They're constantly playing alert, heads up, high tempo rugby, and it was way too much for this
slow,
laboured,
poor
Pumas side.
Argentina managed a maul try at the beginning of the second half to get themselves in, but Boffelli actually missed. We were bigging up his kicking game, Big Boot Boffelli, as he is affectionately known on this podcast, because he is a lovely stroker of
he's
football.
A heck of a boot on him.
He does, but he did manage to hook a few, including one that would have given them a 3-0 lead in the early exchanges that I know they only would have loved.
Wouldn't have mattered.
No, it wouldn't have mattered ultimately, but it was little kind of daggers in their heart, because if they're not scoring those threes, they're not probably scoring that many. However, their maul did manage to get on top in the second half from a Pumas point of view, but then the flip side of it is, for all that forward energy and dominance, and that was a very good maul that resulted in a good try for Montoya, the captain, but then like a few minutes later they have another maul from the middle third that they managed to milk a penalty advantage off, and then they bleed to the short side. They managed to drop it on the toe for Boffelli to chase. He drops it on the toe, lovely little outside of the boot kick on that Hodge gobbles up, and then Kramer, needlessly under penalty advantage, just swings a leg out there, kicks Reece Hodge in the shins effectively, and overturns the penalty and gets himself a yellow card.
Yeah, and he did it again. He did it twice in this game. Both times with a penalty advantage. He also had a late hit off the ball.
Yeah, that was 10 minutes before the card that he could have been carded for.
Yeah, and that was to make it a one-score game. I believe in both instances, the three-pointer, the would-be three-pointer would have made it a one-score game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
shooting yourself in the foot.
The Pumas are all wrong at the moment. Their attack is laboured. It's at least developing, and it was nice to see Bertrand identify that space and have a cut.
Yeah.
Good to see Boffelli out there on the wing, and it's good that they're trying to feed him the ball. But yeah, they can be eaten alive by any quality defence because they're so early in their development. But just broadly speaking, the team is a bit of a mess right now. And like, as good as the defensive energy is when it works, when it goes wrong, it's just all over the place.
As they inevitably are, because they're defending all the time.
The mentality of the players, like it just shouldn't take. I know it's easy to say from the outside, and they're trying to compete with the very, very best in the world. Yeah. But it seems to take them getting to such an emotional edge, like to live with these teams. Like last year, all of the energy that went into those defensive performances, it seems to take them to such an emotional state and an emotional place that they can't control themselves.
Yeah,
and then they're just
very little thinking going on, certainly from those forward units.
There's too many players in that pack.
Well, we always cited Lavanini, and I still
penalties.
maintain Lavanini's a penalty machine, but Kramer in 2021 form is running him close.
He's
that guy is a raging bull out there.
It's killing him. It's like, as you say, under penalty advantage. It's so senseless. It's so cheap. Yeah. And it's just
it doesn't accomplish anything other than shooting yourself in the foot. Like just
raging, angry little crazy.
No, he's not
plays.
little. He's not little.
No, just the plays. They're just these little niggly, silly plays that they come out with. And Guido Petty's a man for them as well. Lavanini, you cited. I mean, there's way too many guys in this pack who are just seeing red and doing really, really dumb stuff on the pitch. Yeah. That is killing them.
Petty was the talking point during those Springbok games. He kept infringing at line-out time. And Lavanini, we were citing, he came bad in the World Cup and all of this. And then Kramer this has been his year for taking the lead in terms of the penalty machine man. Yeah. But he is definitely that, and they are killing themselves. And the fact remains, like, it goes to that first game against the All Blacks where they actually defended them really well at times, and they did that again here. Like, the only gloss removed from the Wallaby point of view, like, it was 3 on the bounce for the first time since 2017. Great stuff for Rennie to be kicking off, but they didn't get their bonus point try, and not for lack of trying. Kellaway did keep scoring. Their 1 second half try came from a lovely James O'Connor inside ball to Kellaway, the young man who's in form, a winger in form, grabbing tries. Great asset, but the slight niggle is that they had several chances to ice that game with some style, with aplomb, with another try, and they botched them.
As they were in Bledisloe, and they were just a little loose, little non-clinical, and at their worst, that's what this side kind of is.
Some passes to deck, pullback passes to deck instead of look passes to hand.
And it's a true line with all Rennie teams. I think of even when he was in charge of Glasgow, but even going back to that great Chiefs team, like, they were absolutely beautiful when they were on song, and some of the set plays, but also some of the joyous chaos plays,
kick return,
their capacity to score in every moment was great. But when they were dialed out, it was ugly and got worse, and they would make a bad problem into a terrible problem, and all of his teams have had that hallmark, and all of his teams have at their worst been a little bit wasteful.
And certainly they definitely were that towards the end of the game. And it's the only concern is that it goes back to those 2 draws last year in terms of they wasted a hell of a lot of chances in those games and felt they had the winning of it, but for what they left out there. And whereas, like, in this one, it's a slight frustration because it's an echo of that. But this result really, coupled with those draws from last year, just shows the difference in trajectory from these sides.
Yeah.
We've seen Rennie's side, a young side, blood a load more players, get some talent back and really bolster their squad and grow through 2021, taking their lumps from the All Blacks notwithstanding, but they have really grown and developed, and back-to-back wins over the Springboks. It's been great for them, whereas the Pumas have definitely dropped off where they were last year. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and it's not even that they haven't dropped off. Well, they've probably dropped off a little bit, but they've also just, they haven't grown. Like they
have. Well, players like Kramer were excellent last year, making all kinds of headlines for bullish showings.
It was because other teams played into their hands a little more. Like, I'm convinced this time last year, or during that autumn series and the Tri-Nations at the same time, really Rennie's Wallabies were the one. Rennie's Wallabies and Pivac's Wales, and maybe France as well, were the three teams who were bucking the trend, trying to play a bit of offense. Everyone else was going defense, and it was
including the All Blacks. They were defending a lot themselves.
Absolutely, they were kicking loads of ball. They were about set piece and power. And that's kind of why when the Pumas just said, no, you can have all of the ball in territory and try and break us down.
I think they had 60-something% possession in territory.
They actually couldn't do it, and they were made to go home and learn their lessons. And then this year, the Pumas do the exact same thing, only the offenses are way ready for it.
Reece Hodge grabs a try in the first 10 minutes.
They're past ready for it. They're past done dealing with that stuff. They're picking much sharper lines, sharper passes, better systems. And the game has moved Ledesma's Pumas by, and they haven't evolved with it in the last year. It's come on a lot since then.
It's true.
And now you're just starting to see perhaps the weaknesses of these guys where you didn't last year, because they were on the front foot. They were winning their collisions. Once it starts to go wrong, they start to flounder and flap a little bit. But I think, the narrative of this game was absolutely just that the Wallabies have, as you say, come on leaps and bounds and are just a very, very fine attacking side. And they're lovely and physical.
Third in the world rankings, and they've only consolidated it now.
And they're just playing their game. They didn't drop down to the level of their opponent. They didn't have any of those concerns. They're just playing their game. They are at home, but and maybe it's as a result of that, and we'll learn a bit more about them in November. But they're at the moment, they just look really, really settled, and they're just getting better and better.
They do. And guys like Tupou, who I hope stays fit forever, because he's a glory to watch right now as well.
He's the number one tight head in the world right now.
They have a lot of quality there, and it's an enviable position that Oz have found themselves in, which is not something that we were saying in week 2 of the Bledisloe series. We were a bit more down on them then, but it's what a turnaround. And Rennie has already vindicated already a lot of good records to write home about, and he is 100% the right man to take them on to Rugby World Cup 2023 and perhaps beyond. I think he's already secured that based on all evidence.
I love his project. I love this Rennie project, and I do wish it all the success. I hope it goes well for them. I think they're great to watch, and I like this.
Really
the Wallabies
watching them
might be on the way back to glory again. But before any of that, they do have a final match in the Rugby Championship to play this week against Argentina. This one they do have to. It's an away match. It's Argentina are at home, so they're going to have to travel all the way to Seabus Stadium in Queensland.
Yes,
to take on the Argentinians in their backyard,
their home patch of Queensland. That being said, some of them won't be available, but that's right. It is going to be in Seabus Super Stadium, Saturday, 2nd of October. It's the curtain raiser this time, so the matches are flipped in terms of kickoff times. It's going to be kicking off at 8:05. That's our time, 8:05 in the AMs, and 5:05 local time as well. So a nice kind of evening kickoff.
Curtain raiser for the All Black South Africans, and you are under orders. I tell you what, because it's Saturday, not Sunday. So all Australian fans who attend that match are under orders.
Remain in the seats.
To remain in your seat until the final whistle of the New Zealand South Africa game.
Yes,
they definitely won't do that if it's a blowout at all.
No, indeed.
But I mean, let's keep that ground full, because that was awesome last week. It was great to see the big crowd in there last week, and it's definitely added to the occasion to a huge extent. Piper in the middle with the whistle, with Nick Berry and Ruben Keane on the AO positions, and Brett Crownin in at TMO, as he will be for the Light again.
So we have an Australian TMO and a South African ref for it, which is interesting, but obviously, we're making all of this happen in Australia, and we're grateful for it.
I did notice there were some Puma fans giving out about the refereeing over the course of the last weeks, and there's definitely some accusations of bias. It is true that their referees should be given more of a chance at test level to flourish. I mean, there are referees in Argentina.
They ref a lot of the slower games and stuff, but
there's no convincing me that the referee has anything to do with the penalty count going against the Pumas.
No,
it's all on them.
It is.
And
they keep giving away penalties.
Stop giving them away. Port of call. Yeah, these two teams obviously as of this week, Australia with the win, they've now moved to 26 wins. Argentina having 6 wins in the course of their 35 meetings, 3 of those also ending in a draw, and the Pumas' last win did come on Australian soil in 2018. But obviously since then they had the 2 draws last year, and now the Wallabies coming in with a flexing great win last week and just looking head and shoulders the better team. And from the squad point of view, we do actually have the teams this week.
Yes, they're both named.
So we can move on and look at them. We're going to start with the allegedly home side, that is Argentina.
Yes.
And they obviously have had serious issues with their squad. Just as if they didn't have enough problems.
No, indeed. This is one of the kind of talking points around it, and you can get into all kinds of things to blame. But anyway, the UAR have revealed 6 players that have travelled to Byron Bay. 6 members of their squad essentially have travelled outside of quarantine rules to New South Wales, and they will now have to stay there. They're not eligible because of quarantine for selection, and a few of them probably weren't going to be used, but some of them definitely were. Names like Pablo Matera would scream at you, Santiago Madrano, Socino as well, Felipe Escura and Sebastian Cancelliere, as well as Joaquin Diaz.
Escura, but yes.
Joaquin Diaz Benicia as well. All of them
I definitely don't blame Diaz Benicia for going out to the spa, because he's not getting any love from the coaches, so why should he give any back? But yeah, some of those other guys, you're wondering, they're going to be quite light, but obviously within their 40-man squad they have enough to cover.
And
even Socino
has been coming off the bench, but obviously Matera is the main one that they will be missing. He had been captain for them last year. He's a big spiritual leader. He's one of their few big colossus men in that pack who don't go floundering about and giving away reckless penalties all the time, which is kind of, he's outnumbered, but he's going to be even more so now this week, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's true.
It's unfortunate for them. It's just been a bit of a campaign that's gone from bad to worse for Argentina. Obviously they didn't realise that they wouldn't be able to get out. It was made in ignorance rather than in malice or in kind of protest, but the net result is that the guys aren't available for selection, and they're going to have a changed team as a result of it.
It was a mistake, alright. This is the side that they've gone for to round out their, as you say, pretty poor campaign. Rodrigo Martinez at loosehead, Montoya stays in there at hooker, Pierretto at tight head.
He comes in at tight head.
Guido Petty gets the nod in with Lavanini at lock, so that Kramer can move to the back row, and partner Juan Martin Gonzalez been pretty anonymous so far in his showings, and Rodrigo Bruni, who has been a one bright light out of this Pumas campaign.
He's been so necessary that he's there, given that Matera is not available, and Facundo Isa's scoring tries for Toulon, as we said. So it's going to be important that Bruni shines.
Yeah, they're much funner backline than the one that started the season.
That's true.
Is still in place. Bertranou, who does read defenses pretty well. Santiago Carreras at 10, who's exciting. A winger come out half is always fun.
True.
Chocobaris and Cinti have offensive potential as a pairing, and Buffelli can go off. Moroni comes in for Cordero, despite I think Moroni broke his nose recently, but who needs their nose? Maybe he might be in one of those crazy Terminator masks,
or Hannibal Lecter looking thing out there in the pitch. Could be.
And Juan Cruz Malia then at fullback rounds out a pretty exciting backline for the Pumas.
Yeah, exciting line. They were definitely eaten alive last week by the enthusiasm and accuracy of the Wallaby D, as well as the slight inaccuracy and hesitance of their own offense. So hopefully they can remedy that and get something going with the ball in hand, which is all we're asking for from the campaign.
Yeah, indeed.
On the bench then, they have Bosch, Gallia and Bello, I believe, or Gallo and Bello covering the front row. Alemano is there covering lock. He's a man who's been in there before. And Francisco Garson comes in to cover the back row, obviously getting deep into the squad there. Gonzalo Garcia covering the halfback position, with Domingo Miotti and Mateo Carreras on the bench. So good impact there, and guys who have caps and experience. Garrison, obviously, he has been capped before as well, but he comes in, given that they're missing a few back rows due to the main talking point for them as far as the squad's concerned, which are those 6 players now unavailable, and just the absolute mess in terms of organising it that has gone on.
I mean, the job doesn't get easier. The Wallabies have gone with a pretty strong and pretty consistent side. They've freshened things up in a few areas, but I mean the front row is meaty. Slipper still in there. He needs to keep his feet, but he's a solid loose head.
He is.
Falau Faianga gets the nod at hooker, probably their most consistent performer there. And then Taniela Tupou, we all know about. We love him. We love to watch him, and we hope he does 80 minutes.
Yes.
Isaac Rodda and Darcy Swain get the start this week, with Philip dropping to the bench. And then you got Samu, Hooper and Valentini as perhaps
Samu's
their
good
most
form getting rewarded with a start.
It's their most mobile back row selection. I mean, it's
the energy levels from those guys should be getting through a boatload of work out there.
Exactly
for sure.
right, which opens things up for this exciting looking backline with Nick White and Quade Cooper maintaining their veteran position in the key distribution positions. Then Karevi and Ikitau not disrupted at centre because they worked so well, but they do get Pataya in there on the wing.
They do.
And Kellaway switches to the left hand side at the expense of Korobete, and Reece Hodge comes in covering fullback. And interestingly enough, Tom Wright, also who we haven't seen all year, is in on the bench. So then he's going to get a chance. James O'Connor, who came on, we didn't mention actually in the review of last game.
We mentioned him throwing an inside ball for a nice pass.
He made his return, and it's great to see him back, and he's going to be covering out half and a couple of other positions as well if needed. Jake Gordon is going to get a chance to come on. Tate McDermott not given the look in this time around, and likewise Sean McMahon.
Sean McMahon, excited to see him if he is to make an entrance, which I'm sure he will, in the back row. It'll be his first game since 2017 when he played Scotland, and he was a barnstorming tour de force in 2017.
He was literally close to one of the best players in the world. Like if he'd been nominated, I'm not sure if he was nominated or not for World Player of the Year. I don't think so, but if he was, you wouldn't have batted an eyelid. Like he was very, very good. He was spearheading that Wallaby side and was just a workhorse, and by all accounts has been tearing it up in Japan.
Well, Karevi was singing his praises, hoping for him to make a return to the fold, and here it is now. And there's been a lot of returning to the fold in terms of bolstering that squad that's gone on. And it's a testament to Rennie. He's building a lot of depth there in advance of the World Cup, and he's just blooding a lot of players.
There is talent in Australia.
There is.
So says Dave
Rennie, and he's managing to find it, which is great. Pataya starting on the wing is good as well. But the other interesting things there in the front row. Matt Phillips, is dropped to the bench for this week in favour of Rodda and Swain starting. Just they're rotating those guys well and managing minutes. But in the front row, Lachie Lonergan gets a look in at hooker, who is last time I saw him he was a little bit wee up there and he was struggling a little bit with the pace, but hopefully he can get in and put his hand up as well. Angus Bell, who you've been citing as probably their best loose head at the minute,
100%,
looks a very mobile guy. He had a lot of good carries off the bench last week as well. He's very, very good in the loose, as much as he's a very excellent scrummager too. His dynamism in the carry is a great asset to them, especially off the bench. But then Greg Holmes is the big story from Wallaby camp this week. Greg Holmes, 38-year-old Greg Holmes, comes in to cover tight head, and should they use him, I mean, it's possible that they go full 80 with Tupou. They've done so before if they don't trust him, but if he comes in, he will become the oldest capped Wallaby of the professional era, and the oldest capped Wallaby since World War II. That record goes all the way back. You have to go back to, Tony Miller took the field for them at 38 back in World War II. So it's a while ago, but Greg Holmes could be set to book that, and I kind of good luck to him. Hopefully he comes on for a few minutes and manages to get that cap, because it's great.
To be honest with you, 38 seems a little young for such a crazy stat, but there you go. They like to play quick footy, they always have, and it's a young man's game.
Yeah, no, it's true. But, even though in tight head prop years, 38 makes more sense. If he was a winger, you'd be thinking 38 maybe getting on a little.
For sure. But your tight head prop should be holding that record for your team regardless of when it was.
That's true.
The oldest player to feature, although Johnny Sexton would beg to differ. As we'll talk about in Ireland, I don't doubt in the months to come he's not going anywhere.
No.
But those are the squads, and I think in terms of the balance of them, I think you would give the edge to the Wallabies. But we're going to start our preview by looking at things from the Pumas' point of view.
Yes.
And it's an interesting one. I mean, where the Springbok analysis was kind of, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't need to use this game against the All Blacks to develop an offense or change the way that we play from the middle third when we've had such success with our other game plan. Maybe it's just a question of doing these few things a little better that we know we do so well. With the Pumas, I think it's a different equation. As much as they try to model themselves on the Springboks, I think categorically what they're trying to do at the moment is failing badly against these top sides. It's the wrong way to approach sides with better squads than you, and they're getting found out week after week after week, and there really isn't much sense in playing a game that revolves around their defense, that involves a lot of kicking, that takes, pot shot 3-pointers and hopes to hustle their way to like a 12-10 win somehow.
Yeah.
This, like...
It's a myth, that 12-10 win.
No, it's not coming, and they need to... They badly need to develop a different way of playing, and they badly need to go back to their roots, which are not the same as Springbok roots. As much as Argentina teams have always loved to have a big scrum, the South American sides really as a whole have developed an iconic kind of near enough iconic style that involve, they're always like little guys with great speed, and they do play like they play constant football with each other, whether it's with the feet or the hands. They link up onto the wide channels and they do you with their pace, and they play not dissimilar, a different but similar style to your South Sea Islanders and your Wallabies,
flooding small channels with lots of numbers, and
it's probably
quick
closest
hands
to France than it is to anything.
Having a big scrum and being keen on that thing and kicking your threes, but also being able to recognise a short side that's under resourced and flood it with fast men. Like that's the key that's missing for them, and it's like, no matter how well you defend, and we've been highlighting it all tournament long, a lot of their defence has been really good. Their goal line stands at the end of last week's game to deny the Wallabies their bonus point was really good, and there's no reason to stop being really good at defending, but there is a reason to stop making your game plan about defending, because it's just not going to work. You need to be able to attack and find a bit of space, not least because from a developmental point of view, you want to see Czech's fingerprints on it, you want to see building blocks towards the World Cup, and we're mid-World Cup cycle, which we've said traditionally is when the Argentinians are at their lowest ebb in terms of all kinds of energy, and we've seen a bit of that. But even with that said, you want to see shoots of optimism and shoots of just identifying that as a problem. And partly this selection of the new backline that they found during the course of this tournament is a bit of evidence to 100%, that. And they found a try last week, albeit a maul try, but it's like they've started to accrue more scores over the course of the tournament. They, like, ideally, even if they concede a load of tries, if they concede 40 points this week, like, if they are to concede that many, I would hope they would score at least 2 tries. Or at least, rather than managing to, like what they did with the All Blacks, score nil, play a very good nil, and keep them to 39, which is very impressive considering you defended for, like, 70 minutes of the game. But, like, they just can't do that. The Wallabies will punish them just like the All Blacks will if they are going to play that way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it feels like they have identified their problem to some extent. But it almost feels like the backline are trying to move the ball a little bit. It's a little bit clumsy, but it might get better. But I don't think that the back row or even the back five have quite got the memo. No. And that's why I think two of the key performers really this week, Gonzalez at 6, who I haven't seen enough of in a positive sense.
Really made too many impacts on the games.
No, indeed. Yeah. And Bruni at 8, who has been very good this year.
It'd be nice to see a little less of Kramer maybe as well as seeing more of those guys.
He needs to be a defensive guy, but like he's an example of someone who, with the adjustment and the quicker games that they're finding themselves in, isn't coping at all and is like getting really frustrated by his inability to have an impact, and then taking it out
to make a literal impact.
Yeah, taking it out on the opposition and really on his own team by costing them dearly in some big plays. And the likes of Lavanini, Kramer and Petty will need to be better, but they'll also, like, it's on the other guys as well to step up and be more of a link between backline and forward pack to allow them to resource more rucks.
Yeah.
And just even simple things like Bruni's been very effective in the carry game. He's got through a few contacts. He can get an offload. Picking lines on him in slightly wide channels.
Looking for an offload, even in narrow channels, looking for an offload is something that, like, we aren't seeing them as keen to hit lines. So we're seeing them keen to come up on pressure defend, which you have to be if you're going to be a defensive team, of course, but just that same enthusiasm and same speed going forward, and a bit of ambition to get the hands free and try and unpick the defence.
From some, not from everybody. No. I don't want to see Kramer trying an offload because he'll fire it at someone.
Turf or at someone else.
Indeed, and some of those forwards, it's a little dodgy, but Bruni's a proper footballer.
Montoya is one.
Exactly. Just getting through the game line, as you say, picking hard lines and sitting the Wallabies down and then opening the field up a little bit to allow your footballers to make some plays and make some reads. It's going to be a little clunky. You're still going to have guys like Karevi coming up in your face.
You may want to line up a little deeper than you did just to allow Carreras to get the ball through his hands, because he was swallowed up by that Karevi shoot too often. You didn't see any of Chocobaris' attacking potential because it wasn't even getting out that far.
And they do all have it, but it starts by sitting them down, getting a little bit on the front foot, as you say, sitting a little bit deeper, and then maybe, who knows, you've got new wingers out there, you've got Pataya, you've got Kellaway has been settled in there, but the Wallaby wingers, they can a bit like Welsh wingers, they can come up a little bit, and all of a sudden, those 50-22s backing your football ability is rarely a losing play for the Pumas. Like, they do have very natural kickers.
Pereira showed in that crossfield kick for that try by Buffelli that he has a pinpoint crossfielder, a pinpoint accurate kick.
Buffelli himself and Malia and Chocobaras all have football ability.
Boot.
So little attacking kicks, but also deep kicks, 50-22s, especially when the maul is one of the few ins that you feel like you have in the game.
True.
Like trying to work those from the middle of the field, and just playing a smarter game all around is something I want to see from the Pumas side, because they're complete no-hopers in this competition as long as they continue to be the dumbest side in it, and they are firmly that, if not the dumbest side in world rugby at the moment. They're pushing Spain. Spain are the only one who I'd rank ahead of them right now, because as good as they are, they're just playing really bad games and making such stupid mistakes every week.
Kicking 3 for 14-3 down as well, and then ultimately conceding again. Like, just never really threatening to be in a competitive match, despite being competitive in moments in the match, showing that their scrum is good, showing that their defense is good, their defensive breakdown is annoying. Like, their players are all very big and physical, so you'd like to see them marry it with a little bit of composure, and the discipline will come down if they can get some kind of control in the game. If they can get close to 50-50 possession, 50-50 territory, they'll find they won't need to be as reckless in these contacts, because they won't be throwing everything at it because they feel they're chasing the game. Like, they kind of force themselves to chase the game with the way they're playing at the moment. So we'd like to see that little adjustment, and maybe we'll have a bit more of a competitive contest if we can see the Pumas arrive.
That's it. And green shoots, offensive green shoots. That's all I want. It's not working. There's no point going back to it. What they've been doing. It's true. From the Wallaby point of view, things have been working. Why not go back to them?
Don't change too much. They won this game very handsomely last week, and we know exactly how. They were incisive from the opening minute. They looked to get after them, and that Hodge try was just reward for playing a high tempo game against a team that are going to fancy try and slow down and punish you without the ball.
Correct. And they're going to need to do it again. They're going to have difficult moments in this game. The Pumas are a sticky team, and I'm curious to see. I'm in some sense I'm relieved that we haven't really seen dialed out Australia very much at all this year. Once or twice against the All Blacks after they were put under pressure. Once or twice at the very beginning of the season, at the start of those French games, we saw dialed out Australia
15-0 down before they started playing.
Just a little bit heads out of the game, slow to react. On defense, a little disconnected, and then on offense, just not focused and not bringing the same energy that they need to bring. Like, we haven't seen that yet, and that is the in for Argentina in this game, that they shouldn't be looking to give up. I'm kind of curious to see if they can sort of, obviously they're total favourites for this game. They put the Pumas to bed last week.
Wanting to go one better and get a bonus point. They'll be exclamation marking this.
Even more than that, they just want to win, and they'll be like there's conceivable complacency in them, because they'll feel like they should win this game now, knowing where they are, and that sometimes is when a team's at their most vulnerable.
Sometimes, for sure.
That's just the only concern that I have, is, are they going to rock up at the pitch of the game?
Once they do, I'm pretty confident that they will win it. If they do it all, and even if they don't, and the Argentinians amount a 3 or 6 point lead for all that, they probably will rally and do it. The Wallabies looked a better team this year, and they will look to keep going to their strengths. Guys like Valentini and Hooper have been awesome. Keep trusting them. I'll be excited to see if Samu can get the same kind of impact that he's been having in the last quarter from the opening whistle, and I'm sure Rennie will be the same. He'll be watching that intriguingly. Line out maul is one. Rodda and Swain have got the nod this time to start. They will have a task. They will know that is one of the areas the Argentinians will look to probably get after them. So it's a big job for those locks to try and disrupt that set piece for them. Once you do, you're a long way towards just removing all of their ins as far as scoring 5s or 7s. And as for yourselves, once you have the ball, you know who you're trusting. Like, you have experience there in Nick White and Quaid Cooper. All of a sudden, when we were talking in that French test series about McDermott and Lolosio and the inexperience therein, now you're looking at Nick White and Quaid Cooper to finish this tournament, and they're like, oh geez, there's a lot of test caps there, and James O'Connor's going to come off the bench to try and ice the game.
Exactly,
like,
and they'll know not what not to do that's really senseless. I mean, they'll certainly back themselves. They'll back that wonderful centre combination to pick holes, to find spaces,
certainly
and create.
Give Karevi the ball and let things happen.
Exactly.
He's been awesome.
Create line breaks and run off. Karevi has been wonderful for them.
Yeah.
But the Cooper and Nick White will know not to overplay things in their own half if the Pumas are getting on top of them.
Kickable penalties don't need to be giving them up.
No, indeed, exactly. Just not allowing them those ins in your half, and understanding that if you can stretch them a little bit and kick a little accurately, you're going to turn them, you're going to pin them back in their own half,
gas out their big meaty
and they're just going to be a lot slower to get back into your half, and it comes in this instance with limited risk. I think they can back their defense on the evidence of last week to shut down what is sort of a very young offensive system that's only now starting to realize the need for its existence. And so just backing your defense to swallow that up and playing some territory early doors.
Pro one or two phases in the middle third, but if it's not going anywhere, kick it with no compunction, because you're probably not going to be punished for it.
You trust Nick and Quaid's boot, and you know you'll get the ball back, and then you'll find your ins from there.
Exactly. Like things like kick return still a great thing for them.
I want to see a bit more set piece strike plays off them. Their multi-phase has been excellent, and they've found wonderful tries off it. And I just love that sort of traditional Wallabies strike move, and I'm curious to see whether they can unleash something
that
clever.
Dave Rennie strike move as well. If they can catch some of those slugs, like certainly they'll be encouraged by to be honest, that Reece Hodge try that they found in terms of the way that was it Porcinti actually fell off the tackle when he was overloaded a little bit. Like if they can overload some of those defenders out wide, they'll be confident in their ability to ball run and carry through. And
unlike the Pumas, I think the key difference between these two sides is if the Pumas have Bruni running over Samu in the backfield, I think that's very encouraging for them, but I'm not convinced they'll get any more than 3 points out of the play. Whereas the Wallabies will be thinking if Valentini and Hooper can get on the front foot and get past tackles, and then Karevi can get past tackles, they're going to find tries. And they do need to just be a little bit less chaotic. Like Karevi throwing 50-50s doesn't make much sense to me, because he's going to win his contact
100% of the time. You turn a 100% contact one into a 50-50 or less if the pass just goes to death.
I mean, I love the instinct. I love that they want to score on that play once they've broken the line, but actually they've been so good in the contact. Their footwork and their speed is on another
their
level.
Offensive breakdown has been good. It frustrated them last week, the fact that they couldn't get after them at breakdown time, the Argentinians this is, and if they can just be that clinical and clean again,
then you can hold the ball for a few phases, keep the tempo high, and then you will find ways in, because your offense is that good, your talent is that good.
Truly, and I think that is pretty much the recipe for the Wallabies is have faith, be patient. Don't rock up kind of still hungover from last night's premature celebrations, but as soon as you don't do that, just rock up to the pitch of the battle that you're going to be facing, and then back yourself to be the more clinical team. Even if they're close to 50-50 possession, it should still favour the Wallabies, and based on last week when they managed to get like 67% possession of the ball nearly, and it was just it was too much. They have too much for this Puma side at the moment, and they should feel confident in going after them and trusting their offense to get it done.
Absolutely. With all that said, are you convinced that the Wallabies will rack up another similar win to last week?
I did go out there with my Springbok prediction that's flying against the waves, so I think that's a little bit
that's
too
enough for you.
That's enough for me now in terms of going, no, the Pumas are going to win with a bonus point or something as outlandish as that. No, I think Rennie's Wallabies are going to make it 4 in a row after their 3 in a row, and are going to rock up to the Northern Hemisphere, sitting at 3rd in the world rankings rightly. And I have faith in this Wallaby project. I like watching them play. I've always liked Dave Rennie's teams. I'm a bit more frustrated with the floundering Pumas and less convinced of Ledesma, and certainly even of Cheka in terms of the offensive imprints. I want to see more from the Pumas. I would love if they got a try or 2 even this week. But I still think the Wallabies might get 4 or 5 this week. I think they will be slightly irked. They might use it as motivation, the fact that they didn't get that try. Motivation to be a little bit more accurate, perhaps, be a little bit more patient, take it through the phases. But I think the Wallabies will find the scores to get this one done. It might be a similar enough scoreline to last week's game.
Yeah, on the evidence of what we've seen so far, it's hard to see an upset here. I mean, I think don't get me wrong, I think when the World Cup rocks around, the Pumas
Argentina all together.
They will be in the mix. I think they usually manage to do that. But
the calibre of the players on the pitch are good enough to compete. But what we're seeing at the minute is just not.
It's in its infancy, developing an attack. And listen, it looks like they've made the adjustment, but an upset win off the back of that and away in Australia on the last day of the tournament after they lost initially at the beginning of the tournament their 2 props, and then they've
lost another prop and Matera and
now a bunch of heads. It's just been really dialed out from minute 1 in this championship. They haven't been close to competing, and I think I'll have to look it up next week depending on how they do this week, but I can't remember a rugby championship since they joined it where they didn't really compete in any of the games they played.
And normally they're good for at least one tight one.
Or a win. They've had wins, they've had draws.
Yeah.
But unfortunately this year it hasn't gone their way, and I don't see that changing this week. I think the Wallabies are a very, very good side. I think they're proving that week on week.
They'll be good for outright second cleanly with that. If they win it, it's out of Springboks' hands.
Their visit to Twickenham in November is already looking like one of the juicier games that you're going to see all year long. I think that the contention, I think the quality of both sides,
the contempt both of them have for one another.
I'm just earmarking that as a serious game and a serious a benchmark game in some ways for Dave Rennie as well, because he'll want to keep his momentum going heading into next year, because you're going to get that dirty Bledisloe bump at some point next year to stop some of your momentum. But if a win in Twickenham would be an absolute statement, and I know it's early days to be talking about that, but that's one that I'm earmarking for them, and this is just another step on the ladder of the journey, the exciting journey that they're going on.
100%. Rennie is the man for the Wallabies right now. He will be taking them to that World Cup, but I think first he will be taking them to a comfortable victory here against the Pumas. But that's what we think. What do you think? Do you think the Pumas have it in them to spoil the party for the Wallabies? Let us know in the comments down below if you do. Otherwise, if you're backing favourites like us, we would understand as well. But equally, let us know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please like and subscribe for more content, and leave a comment down below as well, because we really enjoy the chat and hearing your views. Thank you.